Hello and welcome to the channel, and I am here for the ABCs of rock and metal. Now, this video idea was somewhat inspired by Quest for Metal and Jamie Horsley because they've both done videos like this. So I figured, hey, why not I do one as well, you know? So big thanks to them for somewhat inspiring me to do a list video like this. They both have really great channels, very cool dudes, so please go subscribe to them. So yeah, I had to shout them out, of course. So this video was a little challenging because it was really hard to, gather all these albums. Just to choose one album per artist is basically what this list video is going to be, which is, well, very challenging, I would say. But I do think I have some very good choices here. We're going to go through the alphabet, choose an album based on the alphabet from the first letter of each album, of course. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So first, we got the letter A, and I think for A, I'm going to go with Awake by Dream Theater. This album is fantastic. I mean, this is easily one of Dream Theater's best albums. I mean, there's just a lot to like about this album. I've seen some people say that they don't really like this album as much, and, you know, they don't think it's one of Dream Theater's best. In other words, they think the album is overrated, but to me, I think it's one of their best. Honestly, this album and Images and Words do kind of fight for number one for me, but I think at the end of the day, I would go with Images and Words as my favorite, but Awake is a close second. I mean, a very close second. There's just a lot of really great songs on here. 6 O'Clock, Innocence Faded, Voices, The Silent Man, The Mirror, Lie, Lifting Shadows Off a Dream. So many great songs. So Awake by Dream Theater, that's my choice for the letter A. Now next, we got Black Sabbath for the letter B. Black Sabbath, the debut. And yeah, this is a really great album, a landmark album in heavy metal, of course. You really can't go wrong with anything off this album. I mean, it's arguably the first heavy metal album to ever release and all that. But yeah, I really like the title track, which is maybe one of the best Black Sabbath songs ever. I mean, I just really like how dark and doomy that song sounds. You also got The Wizard, which is another really good song. But yeah, Black Sabbath, the self-titled debut, definitely a really great album. So that's my choice for the letter B. Now for C, now this is not one of my favorite albums from this band, but it's certainly a great album. And the album that's up next is Caress of Steel by Rush. I mean, this album is fantastic. I mean, even though it's not one of their best, it's still a very great album. I mean, Rush, they've never released a bad album. So you could really listen to any of their albums and, you know, find some enjoyment out of it. But yeah, even though this is not one of my favorites from the band, it's a great album. I mean, it's obviously a classic in the prog rock genre. A lot of really great songs on here, like Bastille Day and Lakeside Park. These are really great songs, but yeah, Caress of Steel, definitely a great album. That's my choice for the letter C. Now, for the letter D, I have to go with Diamond Eyes by Deftones. And yeah, this is definitely a very good album. It's not one of my favorite Deftones albums. I do think this album is actually kind of overrated. I mean, it's not the most overrated album in the world or anything, but the reason I say it's kind of overrated is because I do see some Deftones fans say that this is one of their best, like top 3 best, which I personally don't agree with, but even though that's the case, I still think it's a great album. I mean, Deftones, they're another band that's never released a bad album. But yeah, it's still a solid album, though. I mean, you got the title track, Command Control, Rocket Skates, and Risk. These are really good songs. So yeah, my choice for the letter D is Diamond Eyes by Deftones. Next, we're in the letter E. Now, E, this one was a little tough. So this is my choice for the letter E, but for E, I gotta go with Endgame by Megadeth. Now, I know there's some people that are kind of, I guess, iffy about the 2000s era of Megadeth. Some people say that it's generic compared to the old stuff. Now, I wouldn't say it's generic, but I would agree that it's not as good as the old stuff, like the albums from the 80s and the early 90s. But this album, it's solid, and I actually don't really have a problem with 2000s era Megadeth. I mean, yeah, it's not as good as the previous eras, but it's still not bad. I mean, this is a great album. I do like this one. I mean, some highlights for me would be This Day We Fight and 44 Minutes. Those are really good songs, but yeah, so Endgame by Megadeth, that is my choice for the letter E. Now for F, this one, it's pretty much a no-brainer for me. Whenever I was like trying to think about which album I wanted to choose for F, I had to go with this one because this is just a fantastic album and probably one of the best rock albums of all time. And I am, of course, talking about Fair Warning by Van Halen, and this is actually my favorite Van Halen album. Not sure how popular that opinion is. I mean, I know a few other people that would agree with me on this being their best, or, you know, at least being my favorite. That's my opinion anyway, but yeah, this is just a fantastic album. There's no going wrong with this album. I mean, you got songs like Mean Streets, Dirty Movies, Hear About It Later, Unchained. Definitely a lot of really great songs. So, Fair Warning by Van Halen, that's my pick for the letter F. Okay, so G. Now for the letter G, this one, I mean, I had to go with this one as my pick for the letter G, but for G, I got to go with The Great Southern Trendkill by Pantera. And this is actually one of my favorite Pantera albums, believe it or not. And I've actually seen a ranking recently of Pantera, and yeah, there's some people that actually believe that this is one of their weakest. Like, they don't think it's one of their best albums or anything, which I think is insanity. I like this album more than Far Beyond Driven, probably, which I know is kind of unpopular, but I mean, Pantera, you can't go wrong with any of their 90s albums, but this is a great album, though. I mean, there's just really no going wrong with this one. I mean, some favorites of mine from this album would be the title track, Drag the Waters. You also got Living Through Me and Floods. A lot of really great songs on this album. So yeah, if you're a metalhead, haven't heard this album yet, please check it out. I mean, it's Pantera, and this album, it's kind of overlooked. I mean, it's not the most overlooked album in the world or anything, but I mean, it's not as obviously recognized as Vulgar Display of Power or Far Beyond Driven, but yeah, so The Great Southern Trendkill by Pantera, that's my pick for the letter G. Okay, now for H. Now, this one, I had to go with this one for the letter H. So, for H, we got High and Dry by Def Leppard. This album, it's great. I mean, I think it's one of Def Leppard's best. It's a classic, of course. I mean, there's a lot of really great songs on here, such as Bringing On the Heartbreak and On Through the Night. These are really great songs. But yeah, High and Dry by Def Leppard. That's my pick for the letter H. Now for I, honestly, this is one of those albums that I had to put on the list, and I knew that I eventually wanted to have at least one album from this band on the list, so I figured that this would be the best one to choose for the letter I. Now for I, we got Individual Thought Patterns by Death, and this is actually maybe my favorite Death album. I don't know, it's a bit of a tough call though, so because Death is another band that's never released a bad album, and you know, from what I've seen from some people's rankings, there's some people that say that this is their weakest. I mean, when it comes to the Death ranking, I mean, there really is no wrong answer because, again, they've never had a bad album. But I don't know, there's just something so unique about this album to me, but yeah, so it's a great album. I mean, you got Overactive Imagination, Trapped in a Corner, the title track, Nothing Is Everything, Mentally Blind, pretty underrated song. You also got the Philosopher, which is also good, but yeah. Individual Thought Patterns by Death, really great album. That's my pick for the letter I. Now for J, this one easily had to be my choice for the letter J, because this is maybe my favorite Melodeath album of all time, and I am of course talking about The Jester Race by In Flames. And I know that I'm not alone on the fact that I believe that this is In Flames' best. I know there's a lot of people that do agree that this is In Flames' best work. To me, I don't think In Flames will ever do as good again as they did on this album. I mean, this is the best that they're going to get, in my opinion. But there's a lot of great songs on here. As a matter of fact, I don't think there's a weak song on this album. I mean, even the weaker tracks like Graveland, I don't even think is that bad. I mean, yeah, it's maybe the weakest song on the album, but I wouldn't say it's bad, though. But some favorites of mine would be Moonshield, The Jester's Dance, Artifacts of the Black Rain, Lord Hypnos, the title track. I mean, the title track's probably one of my favorite In Flames songs. You also got December Flower, kind of an underrated song from In Flames, too, but yeah, The Jester Race, there's just a lot to like about this album. The heaviness, the melody, the energy, and just... this album just has a really unique sound, and it's very groundbreaking, too. So, The Jester Race by In Flames, that's my pick for the letter J. Okay, so next, we're at K. Now, for K, I gotta go with Kill 'Em All by Metallica. So, yeah, this is their debut, of course, and it's a classic. It's not my favorite Metallica album, but it's certainly a great album still. I mean, it's a classic. I mean, some favorites of mine on the album would have to be The Four Horsemen, Jump in the Fire, Whiplash, Seek and Destroy. Metal Militia is also good, but yeah. Kill 'Em All by Metallica, that's my pick for the letter K. Metallica are obviously legends, and I mean, if you're a metalhead, haven't heard Metallica yet, what are you doing? But yeah, really good album. Now, for the letter L, yeah, I think we're at L. So now at L, I gotta go with Lateralis by Tool. And this is probably my second favorite Tool album. Honestly, sometimes I go back and forth between this album and Anima being my favorite Tool album, but this one is probably a close second, if not number one. I don't know. Like I said, it's pretty much a tie between this album and Anima as my favorite Tool album, but it is a tough call, though. But Tool is another band that's never released a bad album, and there's a lot of really great songs on here. I mean, you got the iconic title track, which is excellent. You also got The Grudge, which is another great song, and of course, Parable and Parabola, really solid tracks as well. But yeah, definitely one of their best albums. So Lateralis by Tool, that's my choice for the letter L. Okay, now we're at the letter M. Now, there's a few albums that I could have chosen for the letter M, but like I said, I just wanted to choose one artist, you know, or not, well, one album per artist is what I'm trying to say here. But yeah, so I went with this one as my choice for the letter M. So for M, I'm going with Meteora by Linkin Park. And this is easily my favorite Linkin Park album. I mean, there's just no going wrong with this album. This is the Linkin Park album that I return to the most. It just has the most Linkin Park songs that I listen to, or, you know, whatever. But yeah, this album is excellent. I mean, you got songs like Don't Stay, Somewhere I Belong, Hit the Floor, Easier to Run, Faint, Breaking the Habit, Numb, and From the Inside. But yeah, a lot of really great songs on this album. I mean, if you're into nu metal and haven't heard this album yet, you need to check it out. So my choice for the letter M, Meteora by Linkin Park. Now for the letter N, my choice for the letter N would have to be No Exit by Fate's Warning. And this was actually the album that got me into Fate's Warning. This was the first album of theirs that I've ever heard, and it was also the first one I've ever purchased and all that. It's a fantastic album. It's a classic. I mean, if you're a fan of progressive metal, check out the album. If you're a fan of any type of classic 80s style of metal, check out the album. I mean, there's so many great songs. I mean, you can't go wrong with anything off this album, but some highlights would have to be Silent Cries, In a Word, and The Ivory Gate of Dreams. yeah, great album for sure. So No Exit by Fate's Warning, that's my choice for the letter N. Okay, now we're at the letter O. Now for O, my choice would have to be Obsolete by Fear Factory. Now you guys know that I'm actually kind of a newer fan of the band Fear Factory. And yeah, definitely a great band. I've really been liking them a lot. And this album is excellent. I think it's one of their best. I mean, of course, you got really great songs on here like Shock, Edge Crusher, Smasher Devourer. What else you got on here? Freedom or Fire, another really great track. But yeah, definitely a really great album for sure. So Obsolete by Fear Factory, that's my choice for the letter O. Next in this video, we got the letter P. Now for P, I'm going to go with Painkiller by Judas Priest. Now, some people say that this is Judas Priest's best album. To me, I don't agree. I think this album is actually kind of overrated, but still a great album though. Don't get me wrong, I do think it is a great album. But I know there's some people that say that this is one of like the greatest metal albums to ever exist and all that, which I'm not sure if I would go that far. I personally don't think I would. But it's still a great album though. I still would put this probably in the top 3 Judas Priest albums. I mean, it's a great album though. I mean, you got the iconic title track. I mean, the title track is maybe one of the best Judas Priest songs. I mean, you also got Metal Meltdown and Nightcrawler, A Touch of Evil, and Living Bad Dreams. There's a lot of really great songs on this album. But yeah, definitely a classic. So that's my choice for the letter P, Painkiller by Judas Priest. Next, we're at Q. Now, there wasn't really much that I could think of for Q, but I went with this album. So for my choice in Q would have to be Queensryche and their self-titled album. And this album is kind of underrated. I mean, I don't see a lot of fans really mention this one a whole lot. I mean, this is, of course, in the Todd La Torre era, the first album with Todd La Torre. And yeah, definitely a really good album. Now, this is not my favorite with Todd La Torre, but I do think it's a good album though. I mean, you got Where Dreams Go to Die, Spore, Fallout, and Open Road. Those are really solid tracks. But yeah, Queensryche, the self-titled album. Next, we got R. Now my choice for R would have to be Rocks by Aerosmith. Now, this album is obviously a classic in the rock genre, and yeah, this is probably my favorite Aerosmith album too. I mean, there's just no going wrong with this album. You got Back in the Saddle, Combination, and what else you got on here? Home Tonight. Definitely a lot of really great songs on this album. So my choice for R would be Rocks by Aerosmith. Obviously a rock classic. I mean, if you're into rock music, check out the album. All right, so my choice for the letter S, I'm going to go with Selling England by the Pound by Genesis. I mean, Genesis is a really great band, of course. I'm kind of a newer fan of them, too. Only been a fan for almost a couple of months here. But, yeah, definitely a really great album, though. I believe this was actually my first Genesis album. It might have been. I don't know. But, yeah, definitely a really great album, though, and a classic. You got songs like Dancing with the Moonlit Night, I Know What I Like, and the Cinema Show, which is maybe one of my favorite Genesis songs. I don't know, I just really love the Cinema Show. It's fantastic. I just am very intrigued by the instrumentation, especially in the second half of the song. It's excellent. But yeah, Selling England by the Pound, that's my choice for the letter S. Great album from Genesis. Okay, so next we're at the letter T. Now for T, this is an album that definitely means a lot to me, and it's one of my favorite metalcore albums of all time. I don't care what anyone says, but for T, I'm going with The Triptych by Demon Hunter. And yeah, this album is fantastic. I mean, it's, again, easily one of my favorite metalcore albums, and really, I don't think you can go wrong with any of the songs on this album. I mean, like, even the weaker songs on the album, like The Science of Lies, I don't think is that bad. But yeah, some highlights for me would be Not I, Deteriorate, Fire to My Soul, 1000 Apologies, Ribcage, and The Tide Began to Rise. Now, I've seen some people say that they don't like the one cover song that's on here. Now, the cover, I actually don't mind it. It's pretty heavy. It's got its energy and everything, and I actually don't mind it. But yeah, The Triptych by Demon Hunter, that's my choice for the letter T. Definitely a great album. Definitely worth checking out. Even if you're not a fan of metalcore, definitely check out this album because Demon Hunter is one of the most not so metalcore sounding metalcore bands, I guess you could say. But yeah, definitely unique in the genre too. So yeah, great album. Now next we got the letter U. Now for U, I'm going with Until We Have Faces by Red. This is another album that kind of means a lot to me as well because Red, I've been a fan of Red for many years now. I've seen them live in concert twice. And yeah, with this album, it's a good one. I mean, I've seen some people say that this is one of Red's weakest, which I don't know if I would agree with that. Probably not. But there's a lot of great songs on here, like Feed the Machine. You also got Faceless, Let It Burn, Buried Beneath, and Hymn for the Missing. But yeah, Until We Have Faces by Red, definitely a really good album. That's my choice for the letter U. All right, now we're at the letter V. Now for V, I am going to have to go with Victim of the New Disease by All That Remains. All That Remains is not a band that I listen to a lot. They're not, I don't think I would put them like within the top 3 metalcore bands or anything. Maybe top 5, but definitely not top 3 though. But yeah, this is a really good album though. This was at the time their best album in years. Kind of like a return to form a little bit. They, returned with something heavy this time around when this came out. I mean, I really like songs like F Love, Everything's Wrong, Wasteland. You also got Broken, I Meant What I Said. Yeah, I mean, not a bad album. There's a lot of really great songs on this album. So yeah, Victim of the New Disease by All That Remains. That's my choice for the letter V. Now for W, I wasn't sure at first what my choice was going to be for the letter W, but I went with this album. And this is from another metalcore band, and for W, I'm going with What the Dead Men Say by Trivium. And this album, I do like it. I think it's a great album. It's not one of Trivium's best, at least not top 3. Maybe top 5, but I don't know about top 3. Probably not. But this is still a great album, though. Definitely worth checking out if you're a Trivium fan and for some reason haven't heard it already. Or if you like, metalcore or whatever, modern metal, however you want to put it. But yeah, definitely a really great album, though. I mean, you got songs like the title track, Catastrophist, The Defiant, Sickness Unto You, which is maybe my favorite song on the album, if not top 3 at least. You also got, what else you got? The Ones We Leave Behind, pretty good closing track. But yeah, What the Dead Men Say by Trivium, that's my choice for W. It's a great album. All right, so next we're at the letter X. Now for X, this was like the only album that I have and the only album that I like that's from the letter X, so I had no choice but to make this the only album from this band on the list. But next we got Iron Maiden with the X Factor, and yeah, that it's got to be my choice for the letter X. It just has to be. Kind of an underrated album too. I actually like this one. It's of course a Blaze Bayley album. Kind of a dark sounding album, one of their more darker sounding albums. I mean, you got Sign of the Cross, Lord of the Flies, Man on the Edge, Judgment of Heaven, 2 AM, The Unbeliever. There's a lot of really great songs on this album. So yeah, The X Factor by Iron Maiden, that's my choice for the letter X. Now lastly, the reason I say lastly is because I couldn't think of any album that started with the letter Z, so we're just going to end it off with the letter Y, all right? So for Y, my choice for Y is Yes, the Yes album. And this is probably one of Yes's best albums too. It's definitely a classic within prog rock. This album, it's excellent. I do like this one. Like I said, it's probably one of Yes's best. I mean, you got Yours Is No Disgrace. Yours Is No Disgrace, which is probably one of Yes's best songs. I mean, you also got Starship Trooper. You got I've Seen All the Good People, Perpetual Change. Wow, a lot of really great songs on this album. Definitely a classic. So yeah, definitely a really good album. So my choice for why, the Yes album by Yes. So that's it for this video, guys. That is the ABCs of rock and metal. Let me know what you guys think. What do you think of these albums that I've chose? Are you a fan of any of these bands? Have you heard these albums? Feel free to let me know. So with that being said, thanks for watching. Have a nice day and take care.